Hey guys, welcome to Emotional Weekly. This week I'm wrapping up 2017. I am talking about the things that I think helped me this year, the things I think hindered me this year, and this is sort of just a very personal podcast just about what personally has hindered or helped me this year, because I think this year has been a very productive year for me, but there's also been a lot of stuff that I've done that hasn't been productive. I don't know. I think it's definitely been a lot more productive than than my last few years, but I definitely think there's still a lot of room for improvement, definitely in a lot of areas, which is fun because if there was no room for improvement, if I could see no room for improvement, then it would be very boring, and I would find that I was at the end of the third journey of productivity. So there's always going to be room for improvement. I think you just had to find it. So even for myself, for a while I thought I was at the peak of fitness for some reason. Not my physical fitness, just I thought my knowledge was perfect, but I think there's a lot of stuff that you have to account for, and your lifestyle changes. Like, I used to not really care how the stuff I was eating was affecting me, but ever since listening to stuff like Joe Rogan talk about fitness and health and all that kind of stuff, and looking at how certain foods affect you and how certain things actually affect you, and looking at them in an open-minded way, I think has helped me a lot in the last year. So personally, when going over my fitness for the next year, I'm eliminating a lot of stuff and changing a lot of things, especially in my routine of incorporating rest and recovery, because a lot of the time I would not put an emphasis on rest and recovery at all. Let me just sync the audio. Oops, should have done that earlier. But also in other aspects of my life, like in my, productivity, work, university, because I do podiatry at university. It's quite a hard degree at times. A lot of it, especially this year, if there was a curve of, hardness, if there was a curve of difficulty, I'd say the last 2 to 4 weeks, I pretty much had to let everything else in my life just fall. Barely exercised, let everything else just go to shit, because I prioritized it so heavily, and I had to put everything I had into that, or else I wouldn't be happy with the grades that I got. And I did end up happy with the grades that I got. I got some pretty good grades, and I'm pretty satisfied with that. The things that I think I need to change personally, a lot of them are in my workflow, not really in my fitness, but I think fitness is something that I need to take quite seriously. And I think with my fitness, I do need to focus more on my scoliosis and more on just me, not general population sort of advice, and sort of focus on things that work for me particularly. And yeah, sort of account for things like the supplements I'm using, especially caffeine. I'll talk about that near the end. I think I'm going to focus on productivity and tools like that first. So yeah, first of all, I think the things that were really effective for me in 2017 was number one thing that I think was really effective for me productivity wise and getting stuff done wise was picking and choosing the things that I do. So especially when it comes to studying, this is a huge area, is I would only do the kind of studying that I think actually works. And when I didn't think a lesson or something was going to be useful and a useful use of my time, I wouldn't do it. I would skip certain classes, especially in the first semester, which wasn't my best semester. My best semester was definitely the second semester, because I noticed I put in, I'd say the minimum, or, a minimum for me, the minimum amount that I permit of effort when it comes to university for the first, let's pretend a semester is at 12 weeks. I don't actually know how long it is. It might be longer. If a semester is 12 weeks, I probably put in the minimum effort for 8 weeks. And then the last 4 weeks, I really, really ramped it up, because I noticed I wasn't at the level that I needed to be at. So I let other things go aside, and I sort of, yeah. Next year, I would like to be sort of more streamlined and try and keep things consistent throughout the whole year, not have peaks in certain things and drops in certain things. But one of the things that really made that time more efficient, which is something that I really want to focus on, is efficiency, not working harder, but sort of working smarter. Because in my past, I've spent a lot of time trying to work harder and trying to get that mindset. But I think it comes to a point where you need to rethink your systems and rethink the way you're working, because if you're not working in an efficient way, then you're just, trying to break down a wall with a rubber hammer. Like, it's not going to work. So one of the things that has really helped me work efficiently is eliminating distractions. I've talked about this many, many times. The two apps that I use on iOS, I use Forest, so it basically stops you from going on your phone. You're building a little forest. Every time you go on your phone, when you have been told yourself not to go on your phone, then a tree dies and your forest looks ugly. That's the general premise. You sort of had to buy into these kind of things, but it works for me. Just these little productivity hacks work for me. It's pretty easy. Cold turkey, it's a bit more hardcore, especially for my computer. I find this somewhere where I'm more likely to procrastinate. Unexpectedly, I don't spend that much time on my phone because there's no real work I can do on my phone, so I can't really trick myself into thinking I'm doing work. For example, what I mean is, I'll explain cold turkey first. Cold turkey basically blocks websites. If you get the premium version, it can block apps. It's completely free normally. It's a really good service. I love it. I swear by it. I use that thing all year. It is absolutely amazing. But for example, say if you are researching cell anatomy or whatever, cells, and you want to learn more about cells and you think, okay, I'll go and watch some YouTube videos to get the base level knowledge. A lot of the time, if you're just watching YouTube videos, taking notes, I think it's good for like 10, 20 minutes. But after a point, I don't think it has much value. I really do think you need to be answering questions and testing your knowledge at a certain point, or just doing cue cards. I think that is another insanely beneficial thing. So with blocking websites, I would block things like YouTube when I'm studying because it's an easy thing to fall back on to feel productive, and I don't want to feel productive. I want to actually be productive, because or else there's not really much point. So personally, when it comes to cue cards, which I think are insanely good, because a lot of university, there are things that you just need to know, and you don't need to know how they work. You just need to know them because they're just sort of things that are there, and you just need to know them, and you need to know maybe the base level mechanics of how they work, but not everything involved. So I think cue cards are amazing for that. I personally use Quizlet. I think there's a bunch of other apps. I'll put some in the show notes. These apps, cue cards really, you can use them anywhere, especially in New Zealand we have 3G, so I use 3G and I'll just go for a walk. If I need even the 3G, I don't even know how they work, but I basically just keep my 3G on, make sure that my cue cards are always working. And I make them myself. I've explained this in one of my last podcasts, I think number 34, where I talk about sort of how I got high grades and how I did it on minimal work, because I think that's really important, because a lot of students spend 12 hours a day studying, whatever, like a ridiculous amount of time, and they have time for nothing else in their life. And I think university, I don't agree completely when entrepreneurs say university is completely useless, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do think if you want real world and entrepreneurial experience, then I don't think you should be going to uni. I think you should really be starting a business of some kind, doing something like that, starting a venture. There's a lot of things you can do instead of uni if you don't have that option. I just don't think you should be limited by not going to uni. But I do think university does have its place for people who do want to follow a career which does involve uni. Like, for instance, myself, I don't want to be a podiatrist for the whole of my life, but I do think there's a long period of my life that I do want to work in healthcare and do that sort of thing. And I do think it's something that I just want to get and challenge myself with and see if I actually do want to do it, and if I am happy with that level of satisfaction, or if I want to just completely quit that and go be an entrepreneur. I don't know. I'm just sort of testing the waters right now. So with that, I think that even though I'm going to university, I don't want to just be going to university. I think everyone at university should be working, which most of them are, which is good, but I also think they need to have side projects. So for example, my podcast, that's what I'm sort of using as my side project. And, just my general fitness, I'm using it as something that keeps me well-rounded and keeps me not interesting to other people, but interesting not just to employers, but just sort of widens my perspective on a lot of things. Because I think the place that I've learned the most this year has probably been from the podcast, because you learn so many things doing things that challenge you. And yes, university is challenging, but a lot of the time it is hard. It's not making you take risks. But when I'm doing this podcast, I have to talk to people who I'm scared to talk to. For example, talking to Colossus Fitness, I was really scared of them because I was a fan of theirs, and then I had to have a 1 hour conversation with them. Obviously, it was amazing for me to do, but I was scared as shit. And then after the conversation, I felt amazing. They gave me so much great advice. They gave, hopefully, you guys great advice. And I think they are probably one of my favorite guests to this day. And then I just don't think you get that kind of risk taking, which I think is essential to growth. If you're not doing something like a side project, because yeah, I think you can have your career, but you also need to have your side project, and they don't need to be completely. I think this notion of A and B plans, like, oh, my A plan is to be a dancer or an actor, and then my B plan is to be a doctor. Like, I don't think it should be that simple, because I think a lot of people, yes, like some people, like say Steve Jobs and Usain Bolt, they like that one thing. Steve Jobs is an entrepreneur who likes technology. Usain Bolt likes to sprint, like that's his thing. And he's really good at sprinting and he does that one thing. But I think a lot of people should be more of a jack of all trades. Like, say, for instance, Tim Ferriss. He does TV shows, he does books, he does a podcast, he does normal business ventures, he does investing, all this kind of stuff. And it creates an income stream that is not just from a job or not just from investing. I think everyone should have a very diverse pool of income. If a lot of income is even what you want. And that's something that I'm trying to figure out, especially going into 2017, 2018. Like, I want to figure out whether I actually want a lot of money, or if it's something I actually care about. Because I've noticed when I think of getting rich and I think of all that, I literally, the only thing I really think about buying, I don't care about cars. A nice house would be cool, but like, I don't care. Like, because I'm pretty satisfied, because I've just redid my room. And I'm like, I spend 99% of my time at home in here. So it's like, I don't need a big space. I just need a little space, a desk, a bed, a shelf. Like, that's relatively simple. And I don't think I need much stuff. But the things that I do want, like the things that I crave when it comes to money, and I obviously can't afford because I'm just a student, is like things like iPhone X, like a nice camera, like the nicest MacBook, like shit like that. That is my Rolex, like stuff like that. Not like a drone, like there's a lot of shit I don't care about, but like Apple Watch, like nice iPhones, like stuff like that. Wow, that is my luxury. And I don't think that I need to get too much income to actually satisfy my craving for shit like that. But I think a lot of the stuff that I want money for is, I'm just kind of rambling here, but a lot of the stuff that I want money for is just sort of to make a difference or do something impactful, or maybe invest and then just rack up so much money that you can actually do something impactful with it. Like, I've got this dream where one day I want to change scoliosis or make a huge impact on scoliosis, just because it's been a huge impact on me. And I've been extremely lucky with it, and I think I need to give back at some way, at some point. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like growing up around a family who's like relatively well off, and I don't have too many financial issues. Like, it sort of makes me realize how like not important money is. Money is important when you're poor, but once money's not an issue, then money adding, I think I don't know what the actual number is, but I think it's 75,000 USD. If you have, I think it's over that amount of money, there is so much diminished returns that your level of happiness does not really increase once you get over that level of money. Just because I think what you're chasing then is numbers and material possessions, and you don't really give a shit. Like, it doesn't bring real, genuine satisfaction to your life, and I think that's so damn important. So going back to the topic of this podcast, I think one of the things that really helped me this year was incorporating real relaxation time, because all of 2016 I spent it so like hardcore hustle mindset. I didn't really give myself time off because I just thought time off is for pussies if you want it bad enough, blah blah blah. Listen to all the motivational speeches and shit like that. Like, yeah, hustle is cool, but you're a human being at the end of the day. You're just a robot. You're just a monkey with a squishy flesh brain. You wish you were a robot, but, well, I wish I was a robot with super efficient, but you're just a meat sack on wheels and on legs. Like you're not that. You're not Superman. You need to enjoy yourself. And I found this year I've spent deliberate time to just be like, okay, fuck it, zero work at all. And I think that is just so beneficial. Even if it's just like, for me, it's going to the gym sometimes, because I find, one, the gym obviously benefits my health. Two, I find the gym fun. Personally, I find the gym fun. And a lot of people hate the gym, so I don't think it has to be your fun time, because if you fucking hate it and you hate going to the gym, then don't do the gym. But I do think the thing about going to the gym is, once you get fit or you start being one of the people in the gym who goes all the time and is really disciplined, disciplined in quotations, if it's a discipline for you, then I think you start to realize, wow, I'm the kind of guy who enjoys this, because I think human beings are meant to enjoy going outside. We're meant to be physical, and you're not going to enjoy being physical if you only are physical because it's a challenge to walk up the stairs. Like, yeah, I just think everyone should be on top of their fitness, and I just think it radically changes your life. So basically high density fun. How I've incorporated that is, I will talk about calendaring after this, but I would calendar it in my schedule. So I would put a slot of 1 to 2 hours, whatever, half an hour even if you're really, really fucked for time, I would still spend that half an hour doing whatever you want, going on Facebook. Like, I when I say going on Facebook, I mean not going on Facebook. I don't know, I just said that. So when I think of high density fun, I think of things like playing video games. Like recently, I've been using my old PlayStation 2 because that is, I think, a great source of high density fun. I think it is something that is really valuable. Another one, watching movies. If you like movies, I don't really like movies or TV shows. Like, they're cool, but I don't know, it just feels it doesn't stimulate me unless it's fucking good. Like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, that shit, like, I was glued to the screen, and that I think is real high density fun. But if you're just drifting through a TV show and you're just binge watching episodes, I think that's when it's not really valuable at all to you. So I think taking time when you are having zero obligations is incredibly important, because if you don't take that time where you have zero obligations, then you're always going to have obligations and you're just going to be miserable. Because and this, like, one thing I think is really important is finding work that you actually enjoy, because I found last semester I didn't really like the work that I was doing. I was unhappy. Like, I just didn't like the university work. But now doing podiatry, it's something that I really, really am passionate about, and I think it's something that people have a lot of issues with, and I feel like everything I'm learning can be applied, and I feel like it has a purpose, and that's why I enjoy it so much. Like, the work is still hard, and I'm not always like, fuck yeah, let's study anatomy of the foot. Like, cool. It's cool to a point, but it does get boring, and it's not always exciting. But, like, yes, you have to learn the lesson that work is still work, and it's always going to be work. And I'd hear people say that to me when I was young, but I was like, yeah, but what if you're a professional skydiver, whatever? Like, work is still going to be work, because it becomes your new normal. And so go on to calendaring. So calendaring, I use I use Apple Calendar. I haven't actually calendared my day today because lazy. Usually I like to calendar it when I'm going to when I'm setting up my day. So if I know that I'm going to have a busy day, or even if I know that I'm going to have a very quiet day, but I don't know what I'm doing, then I like to definitely calendar my day, or else the day is going to be wasted. And yes, it's just one day, but one day adds up. And I think if you have a productive week, that can have a huge impact on your whole year. Because one super productive week could be the most productive week of the year, could be worth 4 times as much as another week. Like, I think it's incredibly valuable in making every day and every hour productive. So I use Apple Calendar. I think my friend Tom, the business kid, uses Google Calendar, I believe. I also think that is quite good, but the reason I use Apple Calendar, there was also Fantastical and a few others that I think are quite good, and I think they've been recommended a lot, but I don't use them. I only use Apple Calendar just because it's there and it's enough for me. And so I'll go through my quick how I calendar guide. So I have it all connected to my iCloud because I'm an Apple fanboy. I have all my stuff on Apple. So I have an iPhone. I have a MacBook. So with those, the idea is I use iCloud. iCloud is a service. It is cheap as if you have a MacBook and an iPhone, or even just an iPhone, get it, because it is so useful. But if you have an iPhone and a MacBook, like if you have just an iPhone, cool, don't get it. But if you have a MacBook or an iMac or whatever, honestly get it, because iCloud syncs all your data, and like syncing a calendar takes like a few kilobytes, like nothing. It takes very, very little space. But the thing with calendaring is if you can sync it across all platforms with no delay, all you need is Wi-Fi and it syncs very easily, then I think that's incredibly important. And this is why I love my tech and I love my applications, which sort of make my life more productive. So I'm using calendar, and I have a few different sections. I have, like friend time. So I have friend time and labeled in pink. I have travel time, which is sort of time that I can use however I want. And I have uni, so time that I'm specifically spending on uni. And at the beginning of the semester, I will, put all my classes in. It takes like 2 hours, whatever, 2 hours so you never miss a class. And I set it up so I always have reminders for every single class. So I'll get reminded an hour before, 2 hours before, whatever. And then I call this project, like Instagram or anything that I'm doing online for my online, wonky wall chamois, all that kind of stuff. I just label that wall chamois. That's an orange. You can like the reason I like it is because it's color coded. It looks pretty, like cool. And then when I'm doing random shit at home, like say for instance, if I want to say I have 30 minutes to shower, cool. I have 20 minutes to eat, whatever. Then I put that in blue and I just call it home. And then when I'm doing work like for a wage, then I put it in purple. I just call it work. So I basically calendar everything in there because I just think it's important, because you can easily fuck up a day by not being productive, by not knowing what you're doing. You can ponder all day about what you're going to do, and then you can do something kind of productive for a bit and then waste your time and end up using it as a day to relax. So yeah, and I do think that you need to have a day every now and then to relax, but I do think that I've been noticing recently that momentum is incredibly important. That's why I have been exercising as early as possible in the day, and I've been trying to get that done at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., whatever, just as soon as possible, because I find if I've already done that I don't need to be like, I often use that as an excuse to be like, okay, I was going to do this super hard task, but wait, let me go to the gym first because I want to go to the gym instead because I like going to the gym. But now that I've gone to the gym in the morning, it's something I just can't think about, and I know I've already gone to the gym. There's nothing I can do. Cool. My gym's actually closing in 20 minutes, so, I've already gone today. I went this morning. Just because I feel like it's much easier to get stuff done when you don't have anything to go and do. And that's why a lot of the time I've eliminated things like fun video games. And like recently I've been playing a lot of PS2, and that's a thing that I notice has definitely a lot, meaning like half an hour a day, has definitely impacted my productivity because it stops momentum, and it's very easy, especially I find it for me, I'm very weak when it comes to resisting video games because they pull me in so easily, just because huge nerd, like if you show me a video of RuneScape, I would get sucked back in. Like RuneScape's my jam. So yeah, I do think calendars are really, really good, but I do think they have a few weaknesses, and that's where time tracking comes in. So calendars, the weaknesses really are like you had the schedule and it's set and it tells you what to do and it reminds you and stuff, but it's sort of very broad and it's preset and it doesn't show realistic values of how much stuff time is going to take. There's some thing where it's like you pick the time you want to do it and then you add 20% just because you don't know how much stuff's going to take. And then I think, I prefer to go on my normal estimate just because I don't want to overestimate and then procrastinate and waste that time sort of and make that time less efficient. I want to just do everything as fast as possible. Speed. As Gary Vee says, micro speed, macro patience, because you got to do everything fast, but you got to be patient with results and just wait till they come. But with time tracking, I recently just started this 3 or 4 days ago, and I'm sort of just using it as a way to see how productive am I being and where am I wasting the majority of my time and where are things being wasted, like on unnecessary things. So for example, I'm not going to cut out things like high density fun. Like if I spend an hour every day doing like a legitimate 1 hour on the dot, doing just a straight hour of hanging out with friends, playing video games, whatever, I think that's cool. That's all good because you need that time to just cool, unwind, and not always be go. Because but say for instance, if I waste an hour and a half going to bed because I FaceTime my girlfriend and then I'll go clean my teeth, watch a few YouTube videos, like all that kind of shit, like that's something you can cut out. And I think sleeping and waking up is something that I think you can make a lot more efficient. And the way I've been streamlining my sleeping and waking up is cutting out a lot of caffeine. So the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. When I am taking caffeine, I take 200 milligrams in the morning. That's like when I go to sleep, how long are you awake? It's only, so if it's cut in half twice, I still have 50 milligrams in my system, around, maybe less, maybe around 25 milligrams, 30, 40 milligrams in my system by the time I'm sleeping. And that suppresses melatonin, I think the thing is. So caffeine suppresses melatonin, and that's just going to make you sleep a lot harder. So yesterday I had my first day with zero caffeine, because I might have had another day like a while ago, but I'm not sure. Like usually I'll have a coffee or whatever, just because I'll be out with someone and then I'll just have a coffee. And like even on days that I'm not gymming, like if I'm with my girlfriend, we'll always just have coffees at our house, just because we just enjoy coffee. But I'm trying to have times where I'm actually deloading. One, like not really off the gym. I am trying to fit in some deloads, but I'm currently running a program by Chen. Shout out to him. So I'm trying to minimize caffeine a lot of the time, and sort of this is another benefit of working out in the morning. Because if you get your caffeine in at the morning compared to the middle of the day, like if you get your caffeine at 12 p.m. and you're going to sleep at 10, 9, then your caffeine is still going to be in like the 75 milligram range by the time you're going to bed, which is basically a coffee. It's like you've just had a coffee before you go to bed. I don't know how much it works. That's just what I'm looking at from Half-Life, but I don't know the specifics of how it actually interacts with you, with your melatonin. At the end of the day, if it's just been in your system for a long time, I don't know if it's still working you up and if it's still just slowly go like that, because I know we just learned this a little bit in uni. I find there are a few things that I can apply from uni into just my fitness, because my degree is a very physical degree. It is a very health degree. It's not focused on, engineering or whatever. It's focused on the body, so it's very practical, even though I don't do a lot of running right now, but I may in the future. I can sort out my own issues, which would be a fun little project. So I've been doing a little time tracking. What the idea with time tracking is, I use the app Toggl, recommended by CGP Grey and iMike. Thanks guys, shout out. So the way I do it is I have a few different projects, just like my calendar. I think they're in different colors though, which I want to change because, so I'll have things like necessary, like say, I don't know how to explain this, like say showering or going to the toilet, stuff like that, eating. I will time track those, but I would not going to the toilet, but like say if I need to cook a meal, because I do think you get a lot of benefits in cooking a meal. So I will cook my meal and I will track it, and I will track how much time did I actually spend cooking that meal, and then how much time did I spend from leaving the gym to walking home, showering, getting ready for my next task. That's something that I like to track a lot, because I think that's a time when I waste a lot of time. So for instance, I will come home from the gym, I will go eat some food, and then I'll go shower, and then that can be like an hour wasted just on getting ready after the gym. And I think that's something that I need to streamline, because a lot of the time my food is good, and I think my food is something that I don't waste a lot of time on, like getting food in. But yeah, because I do put a lot of priority on eating food right now, just because I have the time and I can put the priority on it. During uni, I didn't last year, but I'm thinking this year I'm going to do a lot more meal prepping and just stuff like that to try and, bounce up the calories, or just bring an extra meal to uni to try and bounce up the calories, not go to McDonald's every day, because that was something I was doing just to try and get the calories in, and it's just not healthy. And it's just something like, I feel like, okay, cool, it might gain me muscle now by getting me a caloric surplus, but I don't think it's beneficial for my health. And that's something that I got to take into account. So yeah, I've talked a bit about the 80-20 rule. So last of all, with time tracking, I think that personally I'm loving it, but it is a thing that I don't think is right for everyone. Maybe you just want to track the time that you actually are working, but I like to track everything, just because I think tracking everything, and then because it shows you a nice graph of what time you're spending and what in the pie chart, and I think relatively it's easy to know, but it's also quite easy to get skewed if you're not tracking it correctly. So if you're not being accurate with your time tracking, that it can easily get skewed. Like say for instance, the other night I was like, okay, I'm tracking time it takes to clean your and you're not trying to race against the clock, you're just trying to do everything at a normal pace, because you don't want to put the extra stress on you, and you just don't want to stress over cleaning your teeth like it's a thing. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to track the time when I'm going to sleep and get ready for bed. And then I forgot to turn the timer off, so then it adds on 9 hours. And I was looking at my thing and I was like, what is this? So you had to check that, and you just had to, like, if you look, and then if I looked in a week, I might not notice that because it's a small difference, but it would make a major difference in that project. And then I'd look at this. I'd look at like, I don't know what I've called it. I think I've called it self-care or something, like, stuff like that. That chunk would be like 25% just because of I added that in. So that's something that you got to watch out for with time tracking. I'm only like 4 days in. So far, so good. It helps you to sort of realize how much time you're spending where, instead of thinking, oh, I must have started at 1, not 12, but really you started at 12 and you've actually just wasted 2 hours, like stuff like that. Like even just now, I procrastinated making this podcast for a while because I was listening to a podcast by CGP Grey and by CGP Grey and Brady Heron, because it was very interesting. So yeah, that's like, I know that I've wasted a lot of time doing that, and that's something that I think I need to streamline. And I think you can waste 40 minutes easily, like just doing random shit that doesn't matter. So then with the 80-20 rule, personally, when it comes to the 80-20 rule for me, I next year, I just want to focus on cutting out things that sort of have a minor impact. Like for instance, my workouts are fun, but I realized recently that you can get a really good workout in 45 minutes, not 2 hours. Like, I don't know, I think there's just a lot of stuff that I can streamline with my workout and sort of reduce it down to the 20% of my workout that is really beneficial compared to the 80% that is just filler. Like, and I think that rule, the 80-20 rule, applies in a huge amount of places. And I just want to sort of streamline that and figure out what brings back the majority of benefits. For example, I would say attending the lectures in university, I'd say it's pretty useful. I'd say like that's where you learn a lot of stuff, just attending the lectures, because it's 2 hours jam-packed, full of information. But say for instance, like writing notes, I've talked about this before, writing notes, I don't think that would be in the 20%. Like, I think paying attention and answering questions in class is probably the approach that I'm going to take now, unless it's a lecture that I think I should be taking notes for. And then I think writing notes should be a tiny part of it, because I think like maybe an hour of writing notes a week can be a good, like per subject, can be a good practice. But I think it gets to a point where it's got extreme diminishing returns and it's just procrastination at that point. So I think the 20% from there would be answering questions and figuring out stuff and asking questions and all that kind of stuff. So, and testing your knowledge, doing Quizlet. And I think, yeah, and also Quizlet, I think there is an 80-20 rule. And I think that's something that I apply hugely to uni, because apparently what I've heard from the second years is the second years last year, they're now the third years, that this year is going to be fucking hard for podiatry. And I'm just sort of trying to streamline my workflow when it comes to uni a lot, because I think that's a place that I can spend a lot of time and not get a lot done. So I'd finally like to touch on fitness, what my goals are for fitness for 2018, what I achieved this year, and sort of the tools that I'm going to use next year. So this year, I think I sort of achieved not heavier, like I didn't get heavier in really many things, but I learned a lot about taking it slower and taking it smarter, because I think a lot of the time I would think of fitness as this thing that you have to hustle at and you have to push yourself to the limit. But I think there's a lot of things where you want to be well-rounded and you want to take it slowly. Like, for example, with my bench press, I think that's something that I really, really wanted to increase, but I think wanting to increase it so bad hindered my performance. And I think sometimes I just am not ready for that weight, and I don't think it's good for me to be under that weight, and I don't think it has many benefits. So I've been working on recently taking it slower and lowering the weight and really just focusing on the form and focusing on my joints a lot, because I don't want to get to 50 and not be able to lift, because I think weightlifting, it has a very manly buff connotation, but weightlifting is something that I think everyone should be doing, and I want to be doing it when I'm 80. I want to be doing weightlifting when I'm 90, like whatever age I am, I want to be doing weightlifting just because it has so many benefits. I was talking to last episode, episode 35, and he was talking about Josh Bridgman. He was talking about how it has so many benefits, and this is his opinion as well. It has so many benefits for elderly people, for young people, for all kinds of people, just because not because you want to look buff or gain heaps of muscle size, but just because it has heaps of practical functional benefits. So yeah, and definitely this year I want to focus more on nutrition, because since last year I've gained 3 kgs or something. Like, I know, like, it's good. 3 kgs is not horrible, but it's also something that I think I need to improve, because I think I can be gaining a lot more. And I do think that I should be in a caloric surplus just because of my joints. And I think my joints are taking a battering, especially when I'm not taking a lot of rest days. I'm not taking a lot of rest weeks, which provide different purposes. If you don't know, you cannot do a workout and then take a rest week. You need to do 6 weeks of workouts with rest days incorporated, and then do a rest week or something like that. So I want to focus more on my nutrition, not just making the food that I'm eating quote unquote healthier, but making it have a better impact on my mental state, focusing a lot more on my supplements. Halfway through this year I stopped taking my things like vitamins, like fish oil, all that kind of stuff. I think I want to take more things like that, more things that provide genuine benefits. There was a time when I put too much emphasis on them, then I fell completely out of love, and I just want to sort of figure out a nice middle line where I'm taking them every day and just sticking to them and just using them as a routine. But I also want to be eating a lot more better normal food instead of a lot of shit that I'm eating now, which is just a ton of sugar. You should read Gary Taubes' book, The War Against Sugar, The War on Sugar, something like that. It's by Gary Taubes. I'll leave a link in the show notes. That book is absolutely amazing. It's sort of, and it like, at first I thought it was just a very culty book, and I actually got into an argument about it with this guy, but he was thinking of carbohydrates, but I was thinking of particularly sugar. I don't think there's anything bad about carbohydrates, but I do think sugar has so many detrimental effects. And I eat a lot of sugar. I know I do. And that's something that I think I really do need to cut out. And I do think that I need to tweak my diet in certain places. But I do want to gain weight. And it's hard to gain weight when you need to be eating 4,000 calories a day and having no sugar, just because everything you eat now has fucking sugar in it. So yeah, I definitely want to have more days when I'm clocking 4,000 calories, when I'm tracking my macros, because I definitely tried tracking my macros this year. Well, very, very late into this year. Probably only done it for 2 weeks now as well. I'm just trying to track a lot of things and improve my systems at the end of the year, because I do think it's a time to streamline everything you're doing and make sure you're doing everything correctly, or as efficient as you can reasonably do it at this point that you're at. So yeah, I do think that I'm probably going to keep tracking my macros, probably 7 days a week, I assume, and then I might have a week where I don't track my macros, whatever. Like, even have a deload of tracking my macros, like maybe even have tracking weeks, like weeks where I don't track anything, like I don't track my time, whatever, and then sort of see how that reflects, or if I want to just power through and not complicate it, because I don't think a lot of the stuff has to be complicated. Yeah, so I'm probably just going to keep tracking my macros, try and limit the amount of sugar I'm getting, and also limit like, if I'm going to have sugar, I want to have it all in one go and then not have sugar again, sort of thing. Like, it's better, this is just what I'm thinking, is better to have sugar at one point than to have it bouncing because I think it has an effect on your insulin or your blood glucose level, and I just don't want to have it spiking all the time, because I think that makes you hungry. I might cut this bit out because I don't think I actually, like, I know what I'm talking about, but I don't know how to phrase it, and I don't know the exact facts, and I don't think it's too accurate. But yeah, hopefully this doesn't sound like I'm trying to talk about stuff I don't know, but I kind of know, but I kind of don't know. Also, I think I want to focus on days when I'm not doing any weight in the gym, because I do think that weight takes a toll on your joints. It takes a toll on a lot of things. And I think just doing body weight stuff, doing stuff like that, can have a lot of benefit. And just doing even just cardio, going for a run, like, it can have a lot of benefits, just because, not just for your cardio and not just for slimming down, all that shit. Like, I want functional benefits, real functional benefits. I want to incorporate a lot more like high intensity work, because I do think that I focus not very much on high intensity interval training, because I saw it as a fad for a long time. I disrespected it, but it does have a lot of studies that show it is very, very effective in improving your cardiovascular function and improving a lot of things, especially because it can be such a short period that you do this exercise for. It can be like 20, 30, 40 minutes, and you get the kind of workout that you would get in a long 2-hour run. Obviously, they have different benefits, and if you're a runner, you won't be doing a 2-hour run, but If you're not, then I think HIIT can easily be your cardio. But I do think less LSD, I can't remember what you call it, long, slow distance, has a purpose, because it does work on your muscles and work on your cardiovascular fitness in a different way. And it does. I do think I definitely want to mix it up, because I find myself getting into a routine and not even thinking about what I'm doing, sort of just going for what feels fun. And I do want to sort of streamline that a bit more as well. So yeah, I've talked a bit about minimizing caffeine. I basically just want to minimize caffeine just because of sleep and just because of energy levels. I do think because a lot of the time I will feel relatively normal on caffeine. I'll have 200 milligrams, which is not a huge amount, but it's definitely not a small amount. It's probably 2-3 cups of coffee, depending on who's asking, like depending on where the coffee's from, all that kind of shit. Like coffee's it has huge ranges of the amount of caffeine that can be in it, but I definitely want to streamline the amount of caffeine that I'm having, and I don't know if I want to have caffeine every day. I've started moving on to, because this is not a stimulant. This is vitamin B3 niacin. I've started using this and citrulline malate just to sort of, I've used citrulline malate for a long time. This is one of my favorite supplements. I've recently moved off HMB. I don't know if you guys know, but I used to use HMB and not promote it, but I used it. And recently there's been a few studies. There was a row of great studies that looked great for HMB, but recently there have been a ton more studies which basically disproved everything that those studies proved. So HMB is basically one of the BCAAs. I think leucine breaks down into HMB in the liver, and then that goes and produces muscle protein synthesis. And I just don't think that the studies show that it's not as useful or even useful at all. Especially if you're getting enough HMB from BCAAs, which BCAAs are a lot of the time in protein. I don't even know if I want to continue taking BCAAs, just because I don't think, I never take them post workout, which is when if they're going to be useful, they should really be useful then. But yeah, I don't know if right now I'm just using Powerade powder for flavoring, and then whatever supplements I'm having that day. Cause yeah. So I'm also tracking daily calories. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else I want to cover. Any other tools? Oh, I'm also using an app called Todoist. Todoist is basically a to-do app, because it's pretty simple in the name. It's if you do use Todoist, I do think that I used to use reminders from Apple, but I do find it's just very easy to get clogged, and there's not a lot of ways you can turn it into a productive system. So yeah, I'm using Todoist, and I'm using it in a system. I'm using it in a way that I think makes it productive, because I'm categorizing everything that I'm doing. It won't get messy, and I know I've figured out how to work it and how to use it. And there's a way that you can, when you make a task, there's a way that you have to phrase it in a certain language to make it say every second Tuesday, whatever, like that kind of thing is sort of hard to set. Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much all I'm using. The main applications that I think are vital, top 5: Forest, Cold Turkey, Toggl, which is my time tracking app, my calendar, and Todoist. They're probably the ones that I'm going to be using a lot in 2018. So yeah, I'm just trying to get everything really efficient for 2018. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Walsham Weekly. Walsham Weekly. Thank you guys very much for listening. Have a wonderful week, and please leave a review. I don't know.